The space around Earth looked peaceful that morning. The sun was shining on the blue planet, and everything seemed normal. But far away, something terrible was coming. Admiral Korith Vex stood on the bridge of his huge warship called the Eternal Dominion. He was not human. He was a Zephyrian, a being with 4 arms and skin that looked like crystal. His people had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They were strong, they were smart, and they were mean. Korith looked at a big screen in front of him. It showed 847 warships floating in space. Each ship was bigger than a city and carried enough weapons to destroy a whole planet. These ships belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, and they were here to punish Earth. "Look at that little planet," Korith said to his officers. "The humans think they can say no to us. They think they are brave. Soon they will learn what happens when you refuse the Empire." The trouble had started 3 months ago. The Zephyrian Empire had sent a message to Earth. The message was simple: give us half of your people to fight in our wars, or we will destroy your world. Every other planet in the galaxy had said yes to this demand. Every other species had given up their people to serve the Empire, but Earth was different. The humans had done something no one had ever done before. They had said no. Ambassador Jake Morrison had been the one to deliver the answer. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. When the Zephyrian messenger had demanded Earth's surrender, Jake had smiled and said, "We respectfully decline." The messenger could not believe it. No one had ever refused the Empire. The messenger had warned Jake that refusing meant war. Jake had just nodded and said, "We understand." Now, 3 months later, the biggest war fleet in Zephyrian history was sitting at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Korith had fought in 17 wars. He had burned 1,000 worlds. He had never lost a battle. "Sir," said one of his officers, "our scouts report that the humans have some defenses, but nothing serious. They have a few space stations, and maybe 40 small ships. Nothing that can stop us." Korith laughed. It was a cold sound that made his officers shiver. 40 ships against 847. It will be over in minutes. On Earth, things looked very different. President Katie Walsh sat in a secret room deep under the White House. With her were the most important military leaders in the country. The room was full of computers and screens showing the enemy fleet. General Ryan Blake was looking at the numbers on his screen. He was a big man with short gray hair and scars on his face from old battles. "The aliens have 847 ships," he said. "Each one can destroy a city with one shot. They think we only have 40 ships to fight them with." "What do we really have?" asked President Walsh. Admiral Lisa Ford answered. She was an older woman who had spent her whole life in the Navy. "Officially, we have 23 defense platforms in orbit and 40 ships that barely work. That's what we want them to think." President Walsh smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Good. Let them think we are weak. Let them think we are scared." The truth was that Earth had been preparing for this day for a long time. 20 years ago, smart people had figured out that aliens might come to Earth someday. They had decided that if aliens came, they would probably be hostile. So Earth had started getting ready. But they had been very careful about it. They knew that if they built big weapons that everyone could see, the aliens would be ready for them. So they had hidden their preparations. They had made everything look old and broken. They had made their real weapons look like joke. Dr. Patricia Hayes sat in another secret room, this one buried 3 miles under the Nevada desert. She was a small woman with thick glasses and messy hair. She looked like a teacher, but she was actually one of the smartest weapons designers in the world. "The Quantum Entanglement Defense Network is ready," she told her team. "All systems are green. The defense network was her life's work. For 20 years, she had worked on a plan to turn Earth's entire solar system into a giant weapon. She had hidden laser cannons inside old satellites. She had put bombs inside asteroids. She had built gun platforms and disguised them as space junk. The aliens thought they were looking at a weak planet with old defenses. They had no idea that every piece of junk in Earth's orbit was actually a weapon waiting to fire. Colonel Steve Carter was in charge of the operation. He was a quiet man who had fought in 3 wars. He knew that the most important thing in any battle was surprise. "All stations report ready," he said into his headset. Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Korath was getting impatient. He wanted to start the attack. He wanted to show these humans what happened when you said no to the Empire. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we are receiving a message from the human planet." "Put it on the screen," Korath ordered. The screen showed a human man in a military uniform. It was Captain Danny Rodriguez, commander of a human ship called the Guardian. The ship looked old and beaten up, like it had been built from spare parts. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force," the human said. "You are not welcome in our solar system. Leave now or face the consequences." Korath and his officers laughed. The human ship looked like it would fall apart if someone sneezed on it. How could 40 broken ships fight 847 of the Empire's best warships? "Human," Korath said, "you are brave but stupid. We have come to punish your world for refusing the Empire. You cannot stop us. Surrender now, and we will kill you quickly." Captain Rodriguez smiled. It was a calm, confident smile. "Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but we're going to have to pass. You see, we don't like uninvited guests." "Your bravado will die with your species," Korath snarled. "Maybe," Rodriguez replied, "but you won't be around to see it." The transmission ended. Korath stared at the screen for a moment. He had never met humans before, but he was starting to understand why they had refused the Empire. They were either very brave or very stupid. He decided they were stupid. "All ships," he announced to his fleet, "prepare for attack. We will show these humans the price of defying the Empire." The 847 warships began to move toward Earth. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of deadly fish swimming through space. Each ship was ready to fire its weapons. Each captain was ready to follow orders. None of them knew that they were flying into the most dangerous trap in the galaxy. On Earth, President Walsh watched the alien fleet approach. She felt scared, but she also felt proud. Her species had refused to kneel to bullies. Now they would find out if their preparations were enough. "May God help us all," she whispered. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The Zephyrian fleet moved through space like a cloud of death. Admiral Korath stood on his bridge, watching the human planet grow larger on his screens. He had done this many times before. First, he would position his ships around the enemy planet, and he would demand surrender. If they refused, he would destroy their cities one by one until they begged for mercy. It always worked the same way. The aliens would see his massive fleet and give up immediately. Sometimes they would cry. Sometimes they would try to bargain. But they always surrendered in the end. Humans would be no different. "Deploy the intimidation formation," Korath ordered his fleet. "I want them to see how hopeless their situation is." The 847 warships spread out across space around Earth. Each ship was the size of a mountain and covered in weapons. The formation was designed to make the enemy feel small and helpless. It had never failed to work. On Earth, people looked up at the night sky and saw new stars. But these stars were not stars at all. They were the lights of enemy ships, so many that they lit up the darkness. Children pointed at them and asked their parents what they were. The parents did not know what to say, but the leaders of Earth knew exactly what those lights meant. War had come to their world. Captain Danny Rodriguez stood on the bridge of his ship, the Guardian. The ship looked old and rusty on the outside, but inside it was full of the most advanced technology Earth had ever built. The alien spy satellites had taken pictures of the Guardian and decided it was junk. That was exactly what Rodriguez wanted them to think. "Sir," said his communications officer, Amy Chun, "we're getting a message from the alien flagship." "Put it on the main screen," Rodriguez ordered. The screen filled with the image of Admiral Korath. The alien was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that looked like broken glass. His eyes were cold and cruel. When he spoke, his voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "Primitive humans," Korath said, "you have made a terrible mistake. You refused to serve the Empire, and now you must pay the price. I will give you one last chance to surrender. Give up now, and we will only take half of your people as slaves. Refuse, and we will kill everyone on your planet." Captain Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. He looked completely relaxed, as if he was having a normal conversation with a friend. "Admiral, that's very generous of you, but I'm afraid we'll have to decline. You see, we have a strict policy about uninvited guests." Korath's eyes flashed with anger. "You think this is funny? Human? You think your jokes will save you? I have 847 warships. You have 40 broken ships that look like they belong in a museum. What can you possibly do against us?" "Well," Rodriguez said with a small smile, "I guess we'll just have to get creative." The alien admiral was getting more and more angry. He had expected the humans to beg for mercy. Instead, this human was making jokes. "Your bravado will die with your species," Korath snarled. "Maybe," Rodriguez replied, "but you won't be around to see it." The transmission ended. Korath stared at the blank screen, his 4 hands clenched into fists. He had never met such arrogant creatures. These humans needed to be taught a lesson. "All ships," he announced to his fleet, "prepare for attack. We will start by destroying their space stations. Then we will burn their cities. I want them to watch their world die slowly." But as the Siphian fleet prepared to attack, something strange began to happen. The alien ship's sensors started picking up energy readings from all over the solar system. At first, the readings were small and scattered. Then they got stronger. "Sir," said the tactical officer on Korath's bridge, "we're detecting some unusual energy signatures." "From the human ships?" Korath asked. "No, sir. They're coming from ... everywhere. The asteroids, the moons, even what looks like space debris." Korath frowned. "Explain. I don't understand it, sir." "We're reading energy signatures from thousands of different locations. It's like the entire solar system's powering up." Deep beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Patricia Hayes sat in her command center, watching her life's work come online. For 20 years, she had worked on the Quantum Entanglement Defense Network. It was the most ambitious military project in human history. The idea was simple but brilliant. Instead of building a few big weapons that the aliens could see and destroy, Earth had built thousands of small weapons and hidden them everywhere. They had hollowed out asteroids and filled them with laser cannons. They had built missile launchers and disguised them as old satellites. They had even put weapons inside pieces of space junk. "All stations report ready," announced Colonel Steve Carter. Dr. Hayes smiled. She had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. "Begin activation." "Sequence," she ordered. Across the solar system, humanity's true defenses began to wake up. What had looked like a piece of broken satellite suddenly opened up to reveal a plasma cannon. What had seemed like a harmless asteroid split apart to show missile launchers inside. What had appeared to be random space debris turned out to be camouflaged gun platforms. The aliens had been looking at Earth's defenses for months, and they had seen exactly what the humans wanted them to see. 40 old ships and a few space stations. They had no idea that every piece of junk in the solar system was actually a weapon. On the alien flagship, the tactical officer was becoming more and more nervous. Sir, we're now counting over 10,000 individual weapon signatures. They're everywhere. That's impossible, Korath said, but his voice was no longer confident. Our intelligence reports showed minimal defenses. Sir, either our intelligence was wrong, or the humans have been lying to us for a very long time. Admiral Korath felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. He had fought in 17 wars and conquered 1,000 worlds. He had never seen anything like this. The humans had not just hidden their weapons. They had hidden an entire army. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system again. This time, he was speaking not just to Korath, but to the entire Zephyrian fleet. Admiral, Rodriguez said, welcome to the Sol System. Population, 8 billion humans who really don't appreciate uninvited guests. You came here thinking you were going to attack a weak, defenseless planet. Well, I've got some bad news for you. On Rodriguez's bridge, his weapons officer turned to him. Sir, all defense platforms are online and ready to fire. Good, Rodriguez said. Open a channel to the entire fleet. The communication system crackled to life. Rodriguez's voice was calm and steady, but there was something dangerous in it now. Zephyrian fleet, this is your first and last warning. You have entered our solar system without permission. You have threatened our planet and our people. You have 10 minutes to turn around and leave. If you are still here in 10 minutes and 1 second, we will consider that an act of war. Korath was so angry he could barely speak. You think you can threaten us? You think your hidden weapons scare us? We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Yes, Rodriguez said, but you've never conquered Earth, and you're not going to start today. The 10 minutes passed slowly. On the alien ships, captains asked their admiral what they should do. Some wanted to attack immediately. Others wanted to retreat and call for reinforcements. But Korath's pride would not let him back down. We do not retreat, he announced to his fleet. We do not run from primitive humans. All ships, prepare to attack. We will show them what happens when you threaten the Empire. Rodriguez sighed. He had hoped the aliens would be smart enough to leave. Now he would have to show them why that would have been a good idea. All stations, he announced to the Human Defense Network. This is Guardian Actual. The aliens have chosen war. Initiate Protocol 7. Time to show our guests what human hospitality looks like. Across the solar system, thousands of hidden weapons turned toward the Zephyrian fleet. In a few seconds, the aliens would learn why Earth had remained independent for so long. The battle was about to begin. The moment Captain Rodriguez gave the order, a solar system exploded into light. What had seemed like empty space suddenly filled with laser beams, plasma blasts, and missile trails. The Zephyrian fleet, which had been moving in perfect formation toward Earth, suddenly found themselves under attack from every direction. Admiral Korath grabbed the arms of his command chair as his flagship shook from multiple hits. What is happening? He shouted. Sir, we're under attack from everywhere, his tactical officer screamed back. The asteroids are firing at us. The space debris is firing at us. Even the ice chunks from the outer system are shooting at you? Korath could not believe what he was seeing. His perfect formation was falling apart as his ships tried to dodge attacks coming from all sides. This was not how battles were supposed to work. Enemies were supposed to line up and fight ship to ship. They were not supposed to turn their entire solar system into a weapon. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos sat in the control room of Defense Platform Watchdog 7, which was hidden inside what looked like a large asteroid. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. Her platform had been disguised so well that the aliens had flown right past it without noticing. "Target locked," she announced to her crew. "Firing main cannon." The fake asteroid split open like a flower, revealing a massive plasma cannon inside. The cannon fired, sending a beam of superheated energy straight into the side of a Zephyrian cruiser. The alien ship's shields flickered for a moment, then collapsed completely. The beam cut through the ship's hull like a knife through paper. "Direct hit," Santos reported. "Target destroyed." Switching to next target. All across the solar system, the same thing was happening. What the aliens had thought was harmless space junk was revealing itself to be humanity's greatest weapon. Each piece of debris, each asteroid, each abandoned satellite was actually a carefully disguised gun platform. The Zephyrians tried to fight back, but they could not find their enemies. The human weapons would fire, then close up and disappear again. The aliens were shooting at targets that looked like rocks and ice. Colonel Pete Williams was commanding the Luna-based defense grid from his position on the moon. For 15 years, he had overseen the construction of railguns built into the moon's surface. The aliens had thought they were looking at mining equipment. They had been wrong. "Luna-based to all stations," Williams announced. "Firing sequence Alpha is go." The moon's surface erupted with light as dozens of railguns fired at once. The kinetic projectiles moved at incredible speed, crossing the distance to the alien fleet in seconds. Each projectile hit with the force of a small nuclear bomb. "Confirmed hits on multiple targets," Williams reported. "Alien formation is breaking up, reloading for second volley." Admiral Korath's flagship shuddered as another blast hit its hull. His perfect fleet was being torn apart by an enemy he could not see. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 237, sir," his tactical officer replied. "And the number is climbing fast. This is impossible." Korath screamed. "Our intelligence said they had minimal defenses." "Sir, with respect, our intelligence was wrong. The humans have been planning this for years, maybe decades. They have turned their entire solar system into a trap." On the Guardian, Captain Rodriguez watched the battle unfold on his screens. The alien fleet was in chaos. Their perfect formation had dissolved into panic as ships tried to escape the crossfire coming from all directions. "Sir," said his weapons. "Officer, the aliens are trying to regroup near the outer planets." "Not going to happen," Rodriguez replied. "Signal the Kuiper Belt platforms. Time for Phase 2. The Kuiper Belt was the ring of ice and rock that circled the outer edge of the solar system. The aliens had assumed it was just natural debris. They had not realized the human engineers had spent 10 years placing weapons platforms throughout the belt, disguised as comets and ice chunks. As the surviving Zephyrian ships tried to flee toward the outer system, they ran straight into the second part of humanity's trap. The ice chunks around them suddenly came alive with weapon fire. Plasma cannons emerged from fake comets. Missile launchers popped out of artificial asteroids. "Sir, the escape route is blocked," the tactical officer reported to Admiral Korath. "The humans have weapons everywhere." Korath could not understand what was happening. In all his years of war, he had never seen anything like this. The humans had not just built weapons. They had rebuilt their entire solar system as a weapon. Dr. Patricia Hayes watched the battle from her command center deep underground. Her life's work was performing perfectly. The Quantum Entanglement Defense Network was coordinating thousands of weapons across billions of miles of space, all working together as one giant system. "Status report," she requested. "All systems functioning normally. replied her assistant. We have destroyed 412 enemy ships. 325 remain, but they are scattered and disorganized. Good, Dr. Hayes said. Initiate Phase 3. Let's finish this. Phase 3 was the most devastating part of the defense plan. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt were gravitational mines, devices that could create artificial gravity fields, strong enough to crush a spaceship. The aliens had no idea they existed. Lieutenant Sarah Kim was controlling Gravity Mine Station Alpha from her position on Ceres. She watched as 3 Zephyrian destroyers flew toward her position, trying to escape the weapon's fire behind them. Activating Gravity Mine, she announced. Target lock confirmed. The space around the 3 alien ships suddenly twisted. An invisible force grabbed the ships and began pulling them together. The aliens tried to fire their engines to escape, but the artificial gravity was too strong. The 3 ships were crushed together like tin cans, their hulls crumpling under the immense force. Gravity mine successful, Kim reported. 3 targets destroyed. Admiral Korath's flagship was now alone, separated from the rest of his fleet. Most of his ships were destroyed, and the survivors were scattered across the solar system, each one fighting for its life against enemies they could not see. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving a transmission from the human captain. Captain Rodriguez appeared on the screen again. He still looked calm and relaxed, as if he was having a normal conversation. Admiral, how are you enjoying your visit to our solar system? You planned this, Korath said, his voice shaking with rage and fear. You made us think you were weak. We never said we were weak, Rodriguez replied. You just assumed. We were. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was coming here in the first place. Our intelligence said you had minimal defenses. Rodriguez smiled. Admiral, let me explain something about human intelligence. We've been spying on each other for thousands of years. We're very good at it. We've been watching your empire for 50 years. We knew you would come eventually. We knew you would send scouts to study our defenses. So we made sure your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see. You showed us fake defenses. We showed you our museum pieces. The real defenses were hidden where your scouts would never think to look. In asteroids, in space junk, in the moon itself. We turned our entire solar system into a weapon, and you flew right into it. Korath looked at his tactical display. Of his 847 ships, only about 200 were still functioning, and those were scattered and under constant attack. His perfect fleet had been destroyed by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. This is not how civilized species fight wars, he said. Admiral, Rodriguez replied, we're not civilized. We're human. We've been fighting each other for our entire history. We've gotten very good at it. When we finally had a common enemy, we put all that experience to use. The communication ended. Admiral Korath stared at the blank screen, realizing that his great fleet was doomed. The humans had outsmarted him completely, and the battle was far from over. The battle had been raging for 12 hours, and the Zephyrian fleet was dying. Admiral Korath's once mighty armada was scattered across the solar system like broken toys. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds were now floating wreckage. The perfect formations that had struck fear into entire civilizations were gone, replaced by desperate groups of survivors trying to find a way to escape. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we have lost 543 ships. Only 304 remain operational. Korath closed his eyes. In one day, he had lost more ships than in all his previous wars combined. The humans had done something that no enemy had ever managed to do. They had turned his strength against him. How? He whispered. How did they do this? The answer came from Captain Rodriguez, whose voice suddenly filled the bridge of every surviving Zephyrian ship. "Admiral, this is Captain Rodriguez. I thought you might want to understand what happened to your fleet. You see, 50 years ago, we detected your empire's existence. We knew that someday you would come to Earth. We knew you would be stronger than us, so we had to be smarter." On the Guardian's bridge, Rodriguez walked slowly around the tactical display, looking at the scattered remains of the alien fleet. "You sent spies to study our defenses. We let them. We showed them exactly what we wanted them to see. Old ships, weak weapons, a planet that looked helpless. But while your spies were watching our fake defenses, we were building our real ones. We hollowed out asteroids and filled them with weapons. We built gun platforms and disguised them as space junk. We turned our entire solar system into a trap." Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos was still fighting from her hidden platform inside the fake asteroid. Her weapons had been firing continuously. For hours, picking off alien ships one by one. "Santos to command," she reported. "I count 15 enemy ships in my sector. They're trying to group together for a coordinated escape." "Negative," came the reply from Colonel Carter. "No one leaves. Activate the perimeter defense grid." Santos smiled. The aliens had no idea what was coming next. Perimeter grid activated. Beginning final phase. The outer edge of the solar system suddenly came alive with weapons fire. The Zephyrians found their escape routes blocked by massive gun platforms that had been hidden in the Kuiper Belt, disguised as comets and ice chunks. What had looked like natural debris was actually humanity's final line of defense. Commander Jack Miller was in charge of Perimeter Station 1, built inside what appeared to be a large comet. He had been waiting patiently for 18 hours, watching the alien fleet get destroyed piece by piece. Now it was his turn. "Target acquired," he announced to his crew. Firing main battery. The fake comet split open, revealing weapons that were bigger and more powerful than anything the aliens had seen so far. The massive cannon fired, sending a beam of energy that cut through 3 enemy ships at once. "Direct hit," Miller reported. 3 targets destroyed. Switching to next target. All around the solar system, the same thing was happening. The aliens were trapped in a killing field with no way out. Every direction they turned, they found more human weapons waiting for them. Admiral Korath's flagship was taking heavy damage. His shields were failing, and his hull was cracked in a dozen places. His crew was scared and confused. They had never been in a battle like this before. "Sir," his engineer reported, "we're losing power to the main systems. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Life support is failing. Can we escape?" Korath asked. "No, sir. The humans have blocked all the exit routes. We're trapped." Colonel Pete Williams was still commanding the Luna Base railguns from his position on the moon. His weapons had been firing for hours, and they were running low on ammunition. But there were still plenty of alien ships left to destroy. "Luna Base to all stations," he announced. "We're down to our last magazine. Let's make it count." The moon's surface erupted with light one final time as the railguns fired their last. Shots. The kinetic projectiles streaked across space, each one finding its target with deadly precision. "Confirmed hits on 12 targets," Williams reported. "Luna Base is now out of ammunition, but the job is done." Dr. Patricia Hayes watched the battle from her command center. Her defense network had performed better than she had ever dreamed. The aliens' mighty fleet was almost completely destroyed. "Status report," she requested. "We have destroyed 637 enemy ships," her assistant reported. 210 remain, but most of them are badly damaged. "And our losses? Minimal. We've lost 43 defense platforms, but most of them were decoys anyway. The real platforms are still intact," Dr. Hayes nodded. 20 years of Planning had paid off. The humans had not just won a battle. They had won a war, but Admiral Korath was not finished yet. His flagship was dying, but he still had his pride. He activated his communication system one last time. "Humans," he said, his voice filled with rage, "you may have won this battle, but you have doomed your entire species. The Empire will not. Forget this. We will send 1,000 fleets to avenge this defeat. We will burn your world to ashes." President Katie Walsh's voice responded from Earth. She sounded calm and confident, not like someone whose world had just been attacked by a massive alien fleet. "Admiral," she said, "let me explain something to you. You came here with 847 warships. That's the biggest fleet your empire has ever assembled, and we destroyed it. All of it. Do you really think sending more ships will help? We have millions." "Of ships," Korath screamed. "I'm sure you do," Walsh replied. "But here's the thing, Admiral. We've been listening to your communications all day. We know where your ships are. We know where your bases are. We know where your home worlds are. And if you send another fleet to attack Earth, we won't just defend ourselves. We'll come to you." The threat hung in the air like a dark cloud. The humans were not just saying they could defend their world. They were saying they could attack the Empire's worlds. "You're bluffing," Korath said, but his voice was no longer confident. "Are we?" Walsh asked. "Admiral, we just destroyed your entire fleet using weapons you didn't even know existed. Do you really want to find out what other surprises we have?" Captain Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation. "Admiral, here's what's going to happen. You're going to take whatever ships you have left and go home. You're going to tell your empire that Earth is off limits. And you're going to hope that we don't decide to come visiting. And if we don't, then you'll find out why humans are the only species in the galaxy that has never been conquered," Rodriguez replied. "Your choice, Admiral." The communication ended. Admiral Korath looked around his damaged bridge at his frightened crew. His great fleet was gone. His reputation was ruined. And worst of all, he was starting to understand that the humans were not bluffing. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" Korath was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Signal the surviving ships. We're going home." "Sir, we're going home," Korath repeated, "and we're never coming back." The few surviving Zephyrian ships began to limp away from the solar system. They were broken and beaten, nothing like the proud fleet that had arrived to punish Earth. But the humans were not finished with them yet. The final lesson was still to come. The battle had lasted 18 hours. As the smoke cleared and the weapons fell silent, the true scope of humanity's victory became clear. The greatest fleet in Zephyrian history had been reduced to floating wreckage and a handful of badly damaged survivors. Admiral Korath's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, was barely holding together. Half his crew was dead, his weapons were destroyed, and his engines were failing. Around him, the few remaining ships of his once mighty fleet were in similar condition. "Sir," his navigator reported, "we've plotted a course out of the system. If we can reach the jump point, we can return home." Korath nodded weakly. Home. The word felt strange in his mouth. He had left with 847 ships and the pride of the Empire. Now he was running with less than 200 broken vessels and the knowledge that he had suffered the worst defeat in Imperial history. "Signal the remaining ships," he ordered. "Form up for departure. We're leaving this cursed system." But as the surviving Zephyrian ships began to move toward the edge of the solar system, something unexpected happened. The space around them suddenly filled with energy readings. New weapons were powering up. New threats were emerging. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "we're detecting massive energy signatures all around the system perimeter. The humans have more weapons out there." Dr. Patricia Hayes sat in her command center, watching the alien survivors try to escape. For 18 hours, they had been fighting the inner defenses of the solar system. Now they were about to meet the outer defenses. Activate the perimeter grid, she ordered. No one leaves. The outer edge of the solar system erupted with weapons fire. What the Zephyrians had thought was empty space was actually filled with humanity's final surprise. Massive weapon platforms, each one disguised as a comet or asteroid, revealed themselves and began firing. Commander Jack Miller was still in charge of Perimeter Station 1. His weapon platform had been hidden at the very edge of the solar system, waiting for this moment. All stations, this is Perimeter 1. The aliens are trying to escape. Do not let them reach the jump point. The surviving Zephyrian ships found themselves caught in another crossfire. Just when they thought they were safe, just when they thought they could escape, the humans revealed that they had one more trap waiting. Sir, the exit routes are blocked. The tactical officer screamed to Admiral Korath. The humans have weapons everywhere. Korath stared at his tactical display in horror. The humans had not just defended their inner system. They had fortified the entire outer system as well. There was no escape, no way out. The solar system was one giant prison, and the humans held all the keys. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over. The communication system again. Admiral, I thought you might try to leave without saying goodbye. That would be rude. Let us go, Korath pleaded. You've won. You've destroyed our fleet. Let the survivors return home. I'm afraid I can't do that, Rodriguez replied. You see, Admiral, you made a mistake when you came here. You threatened to destroy our world. You threatened to kill our people. You threatened to take our children as slaves. That's not the kind of thing we can forgive. We were following orders from the Empire. And now you're going to follow orders from us, Rodriguez said. Here's your new order, Admiral. You're going to stay here. Forever. The remaining Zephyrian ships tried desperately to break through the perimeter defense grid. They fired their weapons at the human platforms, but it was useless. The human weapons were too strong, too well protected, and there were too many of them. One by one, the surviving alien ships were destroyed. Each captain fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The humans had planned for this moment for decades, and their preparations were perfect. Lieutenant Sarah Kim was controlling multiple gravity mines from her station on Ceres. She watched as the last group of alien ships tried to make a desperate run for the jump point. Activating gravity mines 7 through 12, she announced. Target lock confirmed. The space around the fleeing ships twisted and warped. Artificial gravity fields grabbed the vessels and began crushing them. The alien ships fired their engines at maximum power, but they could not escape the invisible force that was pulling them apart. Gravity mine successful, Kim reported. Last. Escape group eliminated. Admiral Korath's flagship was the only ship left. It hung in space, surrounded by the wreckage of his entire fleet. His crew was dead or dying. His weapons were gone. His engines were failing. He was alone in the darkness, watching his life's work float away as debris. Sir, his communications officer said weakly, we're receiving a final transmission from the human captain. Captain Rodriguez appeared on the screen one last time. Behind him, the bridge of the Guardian was calm and quiet. The battle was over, and the humans had won completely. Admiral, Rodriguez said, do you understand now? Do you understand what you walked into? Korath could barely speak. How did you know we were coming? We've been watching your empire for 50 years, Rodriguez replied. We knew you would come eventually. We knew you would demand our surrender. And we knew you would not accept no for an answer. So we prepared. You prepared for 50 years? We prepared for longer than that, Rodriguez said. Admiral, humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We've been conquering each other, defending against each other, and learning from each other for thousands of years. When we finally had a common enemy, we put all that knowledge to use. But why? Korath asked. Why fight so hard? Why not just surrender like every other species? Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. Because, Admiral, we're human. We don't kneel to bullies. We don't give up our children to serve in other people's wars. We don't surrender our freedom to anyone. That's just who we are. The communication ended. Admiral Korath sat in his command chair, surrounded by the ruins of his bridge. His great fleet was gone. His crew was dead. His empire's greatest military disaster was complete, but the humans were not finished yet. President Katie Walsh's voice came over the communication system, speaking not just to Admiral Korath, but to the entire galaxy. To all species who can hear this message, she said, this is President Walsh of Earth. Today, the Zephyrian Empire sent 847 warships to our world. They demanded our surrender. They threatened to destroy our cities and enslave our people. We said no. Her voice was calm and confident, the voice of someone who had just won the greatest victory in human history. The Zephyrian fleet has been destroyed. All 847 ships, every weapon, every crew member. None of them will return home. None of them will report back to their empire. The galaxy's greatest military power just learned that Earth is not defenseless. She paused, letting the message sink in. This is a message to every species in the galaxy. Earth is under human protection. We will defend our world against any threat. We will not surrender. We will not kneel. We will not give up our freedom to anyone. And if you threaten our world, you will face the same fate as the Zephyrian fleet. The message ended. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations who had been listening to the battle sat in stunned silence. The humans had done something that no one thought was possible. They had destroyed the Empire's greatest fleet. Admiral Korath's flagship finally lost power. The life support systems failed, and the ship began to drift in the darkness. The last survivor of the great Zephyrian fleet closed his eyes and waited for the end. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Guardian, looking out at the wreckage that filled the solar system. The battle was over. Earth was safe. And humanity had announced itself to the galaxy as a force to be reckoned with. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving messages from all over the galaxy. Other species want to know what happened. Here, tell them the truth, Rodriguez replied. 847 ships came to attack Earth. None of them made it home. Dr. Patricia Hayes stood in her command center, looking at the displays that showed the complete destruction of the alien fleet. Her life's work was complete. The Quantum Entanglement Defense Network had performed perfectly. Ma'am, her assistant, said, what do we do now? Dr. Hayes smiled. Now we get ready for the next time. Because there will be a next time. Other species will hear about what happened here. Some will want to be our friends. Others will want revenge. We need to be ready for both. General Ryan Blake stood in the Pentagon, looking at the reports from the battle. The casualties were minimal on the human side. A few dozen platforms had been destroyed, but most of the defense network was intact. The alien fleet, on the other hand, was completely gone. Sir, his aide said, the President wants to know if we should send ships to pursue any survivors. Blake shook his head. There are no survivors. That was the point. The message has been sent. Now we wait to see who received it. Across the galaxy, the message was being received loud and clear. The humans were not the primitive species that everyone had thought. They were something new, something dangerous, something that had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Zephyrian Empire's greatest fleet was gone. 847 ships had come to punish Earth. none had returned. And in the wreckage of that fleet, a new age was beginning. The age of humanity had begun.